Hi everybody. In this challenge, we're going to take an array of numbers and figure out a way to use JavaScript to return a sum of all those numbers. So you have an array, you have a bunch of numbers inside of them, and what we're going to return is a single number, which is the sum of every number in our array. It's going to be a fun one. And it's going to test a lot of our basic assumptions on how to work with arrays and also look into some advanced techniques as well. So with that, let's get started. Okay, so what we have here is Visual Studio Code on the left-hand side and our browser with the console displayed on the right-hand side. Any changes I make will be automatically displayed here. So here's our array. We have an array called numbers and it has the values 4, 10, 5, 7, 13, and 20. And what we really want to do is sum up these values and return a single output. And the output should look a little bit like this in our console. Sum of array values is :59. All right. And so the way we want to do the addition is we look at two approaches. One approach is by looping through each number in our array, having a value to store the total value, and then returning the final value of that total once the loop has fully run through completion. So let me create a variable called total. Let me start with 0. And now let me go ahead and create the loop itself. For that I equals 0, I equals less than numbers dot length, and I plus plus. So what I'm specifying in our loop conditions is that we're going to start with the value variable I set to 0, and it's going to run until it reaches the last item in our array. So let's go ahead and set let current number equals numbers bracket I. This ensures that the current value from our array is currently stored at the loop. I set total plus or equals current number. This means that each time the loop runs, the value of total is incremented by its current value in addition to the new value that we're adding to it. That's what the plus and equals operator does. And now we can go to console.log the output here. Console.log sum of array values is colon and plus total. All right, this seems like a pretty straightforward solution here. Let's see what happens when you run this. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh. And you can see that it says sum of array values is 59, which is correct. And you can see this working. If I were to add one more number, let's say like a 10 after it, it'll probably say 69. Refresh it. It says 69. Let me go back to the original value, just so we're back to the number that we had earlier, 59. Great. So this is the approach of calculating the array values, the sum of the array values, by using a loop. Now, when it comes to arrays though, you have some special methods that make it easier to do some of these calculations without having all of this looping operation go through. And one method is the reduce approach. So the arrays have an approach called reduce, which allows you to take a bunch of values, perform some calculations, and the output is just one single value that comes out of it, which seems exactly appropriate to what we're doing here. And so I'm going to change how we are doing this right here. I'm going to say let total equals, instead of it being an array, I'm going to do numbers, our value, our array here, dot reduce. And what reduce does, it takes a callback function, just like you might have a callback function for like an event handler or for your timeouts or your intervals. There's a very similar approach where for each item that our array goes through, it'll run through, it'll call a function on each one. So I'm going to do function, total, and current. And these are two arguments we need on it. And inside of it, we write code that's very similar to what we had earlier. And so return total plus current, which means that at each time the total value is incremented by the value that you are currently. And of course, I want to start it at the value of 0. So if I refresh this page, you'll now see sum of our values is 59. This works out very nicely, and we avoided having to use the loop. Now there's one more optimization we can make here if we want to go even deeper into really using some cutting edge JavaScript techniques. Instead of using the function keyword, I can also use an arrow function, and I'll have a link to a lot of these things both in the description, so that way you can see what to go deeper into some of these areas. So I'm going to remove the function keyword and just use bracket and then return total plus current. That's all I'm really doing here. Array 59. In fact, in this case, because what we're doing is actually doing something with returning a single statement, I can actually even remove the brackets. So I'm just going to do equals, take the return keyword out, and then keep it very, very simple. Total plus current, and refresh the page, you can now see 59. So you can see how we went from like multiple lines of code to gradually just having a single line of code right here. And now the last thing I wanted to show you, just because we're here, we're working together on this, let's do some simple, deeper techniques that can simplify these things, is that the way I'm displaying a statement for console.log is I'm using traditional string concatenation techniques where I'm specifying my string in quotation marks, using the plus key, and then putting total. A more modern approach you can use is you can use a string literal approach. It is where instead of having to kind of break out the part that is hard-coded as a string and the part that you want to calculate as a variable and make an expression out of it, you can kind of combine all those into one activity. And so I'm going to take a quotation mark out and put this backtick character right here, the one that is just to the top left of your keyboard, the part of the keyboard you may not normally pay attention to. And I'm going to say sum of array values is total. And I'm going to designate total as something you can replace a variable into. And the way you do that in this particular string literal template approach is the $, angle bracket, or curly bracket, and type in total, and then save that change. If I refresh the page now, you'll still see sum of array values shows up as 59. So pretty neat. All right, so once you've gone ahead and coded up this example, go ahead and post it on the forums. Add a link to your example or paste the code in directly, and you'll earn a badge to commemorate that you've successfully completed this. And over a period of time, you'll find yourself having a collection of badges that you earned, and it's a great way to track your progress and just remember how much you've learned as you complete each of the examples. If you want to learn more in your inbox on various web development topics, subscribe to the Krupa newsletter, follow me on Twitter @Krupa, and lastly, if you enjoy my style of explaining things, you can also find a lot of the material I talk about in book edition, both paperback and Kindle digital forms. And with that, I will see you all next time.